Oi, oi, hello and welcome to another Which Bookie preview. This is day 2 of the Aintree Grand National Festival that we will be covering. It's myself, Dave Young, joined by Will Smith, and we will be covering all 7 races this time. We've already done day 1's video. If you haven't already seen that, go and check it out. But Will, we've had the final declarations for Friday a couple of hours ago. Still pretty early days, but racing looks good. I reckon we just crack straight on with it if you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Apologies for the glamorous destination in the car park, but needs must sometimes.
I like it. It's like carpool karaoke, isn't it? We're supposed to start singing in this episode. If we get enough likes, if we get 5 likes, we'll sing next time. Right, the Mildmay Novices Chase over 3 mile, 1 furlong. Will, we've got 8 runners in here. Handstands head in the market. 6 to 4 is the shortest price. 7 to 4 top price. Caldwell Porter's second in the betting. Bottom price 11 to 4. Top price 7 to 2. These are correct at the time of recording. Dancing City's third in. Bottom price 6 to 1. Top price 7 to 1. Stellar Stories bottom price 13 to 2. Top price 7 to 1. Then it's 10 to 1 bar those, which are Key to Bourbon, the Changer Man, who I love, but not in a grade 1. Don't Rightly Know, and then Jordan. So, Will, how does it sit with you that Handstands is in? Let's go for the top price as a 7 to 4 favourite for this race.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair, isn't it? Because the former Django Bay looks strong from the Scilly Isles. You know, even before that, he looked like a horse that was definitely improving. He's been kept fresh, obviously. That's an angle we talked about with Thursday's declarations and card. It'll be an interesting angle with those horses coming back from Cheltenham, having just had the 3-week break. So the fact that he's fresh, 3 miles I don't see as an issue. The ground I don't see as too much of an issue as well. He is the one to beat in that respect, but probably short enough for me, really. I think, I could happily let him win at that price.
Yeah, I feel similar because he was a horse right at the start of the season that I expected to be one of the best British novice chasers. Obviously fell on his chase debut, and I was a bit concerned of his jumping even before he fell. Felt like he was a bit boxy, almost like his back legs and front legs were landed at the same time. But I was very critical of him on that debut because I sort of left him alone the time after when he ran on soft ground, stepped up in trip, and that seemed to be a key to him, and he jumped lovely that day. Did balloon one at Fosslas after, and that was on... Well, that was the only race course in the UK that was raceable at that time with it being so wet. And then the Sandown run with Django Bay, I mean, it's always heavy there, even if they called it good. And that was bad ground there. So I'd be slightly more concerned about the ground than you might be in here, but he deserves to be where he is. He could just look a very good bet 7 to 4 after. But I think personally the one that I might side with is Dancing City, given the fact that he was bad at Cheltenham last year. He's been bad at Cheltenham again this year, but he was so good at Aintree last year, so good at Punchestown last year. There's 7 to 1 about him. With the 8 runners, you can get 3 places. Paul Townend's jocked up to book. The way he travelled all over the Jukebox Man last year, who's a horse that went and won the Feltham this year, I just think Dancing City is the other horse in this race that has the sort of same probably standard as Handstands, for all he hasn't maybe shown it on his most recent run. And I think Caldwell Potter, for all he was very good at Cheltenham, it's going to have to be a hell of a turnaround for that horse to go and win at Cheltenham, win at Aintree from what he looked like a bit before, because he wasn't quite as good as we thought for the beginning of the season. So yeah, Dancing City would be a bet for me in this one. Have you found a bet away from Handstands?
I haven't as yet, no. You mentioned the Changing Man earlier on. Obviously, he finished a good second in the Ultima. If you take Myertown out of the Ultima, who might well prove to be the best handicapped horse that we've seen all season off a mid-120s mark, I genuinely thought if Myertown was declared here, I'd have been very, very interested in him at an each-way price. So I think the fact that he, or the whole field, bumped into him at Cheltenham, take him out and you're suddenly thinking differently about the Changing Man, in that he's gone and won 2 races in a row, from the Reynoldstown to then winning the Ultima. And suddenly you're thinking about him in terms of this race in a different light, I think. So I'd be inclined to view his chance positively. I know he's often had a checkered history in terms of he's found 1 too good on a number of occasions, but he's bumped into some real handicap snips, to be fair to him. I mean, Joe Tizard must be pulling his hair out. A horse who's fared with such credit all year, and he's only won 1 race, but I don't think that's a stick to beat him with, if you will. So I think if the 8 runners remain in here, I don't think there'll be 3 that beat him. Let's put it that way. Whether he finds 1 too good again, I don't know. I think he's a fair each way price, actually, with the shape of the race as it is.
Yeah, fair enough, Will. And of course, we have the 3-week break, which we've talked about. Maybe if it had been a 4-week break between Cheltenham and Aintree, I would have got over that Ultima Second, and I'd probably give him more of a chance. But it's one of them. Like you say, you bumped into one of the best handicapped horses, if not the best handicapped horse this season.
Yeah,
you do the donkey work, and that horse only just gets in at the bottom as well. Like it's racing, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right. An easier race to solve, surely, is the 220, 2.5 mile handicap hurdle, where actual final declarations for this one, not all of the big dogs stood their ground because the market did look a little bit differently. But we've got 5 horses in here that are 6-1 priced with, like bottom end of the market. Got Weighed Out that's in there for Ollie Murphy off of 128. You've got Be Aware off 137 again, who was well fancied for that Coral Cup, beaten favourite in there. You've got Impose Trois that was second in the Coral Cup, bumped into that Jimmy DeSaul that I guess in hindsight was well handicapped because he won a Cheltenham Festival handicap, but maybe didn't look it to begin with. And then we've got Copec Demi that was just a flop at Cheltenham. There's no other way to spill it, but there was a significant amount of money behind him. The quick turnaround, I would suggest, would mean that what he did at Cheltenham, you can draw a line through it, but he's still starting to be quite brave to draw a line through something after seeing it as clearly as we did. It's 10-1 bar, Will. There's loads of runners in here. 22, we've got the max size field. I'm struggling personally to get away from the likes of a Be Aware and a Copec Demi. For all that Copec Demi is hype more than any sort of substance, too bad to be true. I think the quick turnaround potentially looks positive because I think they do expect him to be quite a good horse. And I don't think you just spin him around that quickly if it was going to be to his detriment. And then Be Aware, I'm definitely conscious of him being caught in a big field, and his style of running maybe means that he'll never fulfill his potential in a big handicap field like this. But for the time being, I feel like I'd happily play those two as wind darts against the field. But look, there's 22 runners. Most firms are offering 5 places. A few are offering 6. There's even someone offering 7 places. So is there a bit of value somewhere else in the race, Will?
Yeah, I think there's a couple at bigger prices, and they both come out of the same race, actually. I'm quite sweet on this year's Imperial Cup, won by Go Dante, obviously, for the second time in a row. It was a really well-run affair on that occasion. Go Dante kind of travelled in midfield, had a good position, challenged on the wide outside at Sandown, had clear daylight, clear go at it, and he just held on. But I think it's going to be a race that will stand up because of the nature of it, because of how well run it was. And Reckless Eric, for me, was a massive eye catcher after that race. He's won a race this year at Cheltenham on the new course over 2 miles 1. And he's done all of his racing over 2 miles this year, but he's crying out for me for a step up to 2.5. And I think the track, Aintree 2.5 miles flat track, could easily be his absolute optimum, I think. And he travelled close to the pace at Sandown. He then got caught in a pocket between the last couple of hurdles and then again after the last hurdle, and he flew home and didn't quite get to Go Dante. I think he's got plenty more left to give. He's obviously one of a couple in here for John Joe O'Neill and AJ O'Neill, but I think he's their potential number 1 here. I think he's a massive improver up to 2.5 miles. And the other one is Tin Tin Tin, who I've long felt 2.5 miles will be his best trip. The last time he tried it, I did back him, but he ran a little bit below par, and I think that was on account of a lot of the stables runners being below par at that time of the year as well. Which is not something you can say now. Fergal O'Brien's horses are flying. And Tin 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 did fly late on in that Imperial Cup again, suggesting to me that I do think 2.5 miles is his best trip. So, 2 out of that form line that I think will appreciate the extra distance here. And they look to be both coming into it in tip-top form for 2 yards, going well.
Awesome. And they both wear similarly coloured silk, so you just got to watch the pink silks in that race, and then it'll be right. One of them ones will be Will's.
Well, you won't miss Tin 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 because he's very, very grey. I mean, he's nearly
absolutely
white.
Yeah. No, I like them, and because I put up Reckless Eric earlier in the season on the column when he won at Cheltenham. It was a very good ride, and I could see him being well handicapped at the time. I think I'm being probably critical of him, like I am with the Changing Man, in the fact that he's running well in races, and I'm maybe being dismissive, like, I don't know, not expecting horses to improve as much as they can do. But yeah, I hadn't thought about the step up in trip being as much of an improvement in there. So early stages of the look at the race, you're definitely giving me something to think about as well. I do like him as a horse. He's 3 wins, 3 seconds from 8 starts as well, isn't he? Model of consistency.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Well, we've got the winners in the first two races off of the multiple selections we've thrown out there, but it's some good racing. I think it probably does. I feel like it does get better in the top novices hurdle, grade 1, because Romeo Coolio, that was third in the Supreme, is coming here. He's 11 to 10. He was entered in the 2.5 miler, but maybe the Lamba scared him off. Tripoli Flyers next in for Fergal O'Brien at 3 to 1. He was a very good winner last time out, despite still jumping terribly. Salvatore Mundi's in here, lowest price 3 to 1, top price 11 to 2. Diva Luna's in here at 10 to 1, then it's 16 to 1 bar. So, Will, I'll definitely be keen to know your thoughts on how well priced you think Romeo Coolio is at 11 to 10, top of the market.
He's not well priced, is he? But he is absolutely the right favourite on that Supreme Novices Hurdle form. I think he's the best horse in here by a good chunk, actually. Just the worry is that will have been a hard race at Cheltenham 3 weeks ago. He helped to force probably what was one of the strongest run races of the whole week. The two horses that beat him, Kopeck de Board and William Money, are very, very good horses. What they did performance-wise, visually and on the clock was pretty spectacular. So for Romeo Coolio to kind of tee that up for them, and then for him to stick around and be right in there right until the closing stages of it, I think was a massive run. I really do. He's probably a horse that, if you've got another short price fancy at Aintree or somewhere on the Friday, then he might well be a sort of each way double type just to boost up the potential profit on a bet. But he's not a sort of win single for me, just with that niggling doubt that 3 week turnaround, tough race. If this was in another 2 or 3 weeks, say at Punchestown, and you didn't, have those big guns to go against, then I'd be very, very sweet on him. Because I think he'll make up into a lovely chaser next year, I think, as well. But in the back of my mind is that niggling doubt, really. So not going to go all in on him, but I expect him to win.
Perfect. So you wouldn't be looking to take him on, but you probably wouldn't be getting stuck in.
No, not really. It's one of those, isn't it, where I just don't know. You don't know what's going to, the effects of that race. You could easily see him winning, but I could console myself after the race and say, well, 11 to 10, it's fine. I'm happy to let him win. It's not one of those where I think, I should have backed him. He was bigger than he should have been.
Yeah, 100%. And the good thing to look at it as well is obviously everything's got its price. But let's go for the worst prices we've got for Salvatore Mundi at 3 to 1, Tripoli Flyer at 3 to 1. If you were to bet the next two in, it's an even money chance that you're going to get him beat. You potentially just better to lay him if you were thinking of doing anything to try and take him on. It would be my view of anything, but I won't be. I will be betting Romeo Coolio. I was really impressed with how he rallied after getting headed and stuck to the task at Cheltenham. Yeah. William Money, for all that he's lightly raced, is a year old. Oh, he's a 7-year-old, so he's a bit older than him. And then Kopeck de Board is just an extraordinary horse. And I'll talk about this. Yeah, I did it yesterday. I won't say it on every single episode we do, but I don't think Jack Kennedy was fit at Cheltenham. He hasn't ridden since. And I know this was the first race of the festival, so he'd be as fit as you could expect him to be. But I'm prepared. I think it might help me over the spring or even going into next season. I'm prepared to upgrade everything that Jack Kennedy rode at the Cheltenham Festival last year. Similarly to when Davy Russell got beat on a few like Jerry Colomb and Tiapu, I think sometimes it just doesn't pan out that week for certain jockeys. And I mean, he's already like 7 or 8 pounds clear. If Tripoli Flyer sorts out his jumping, Salvatore Mundi travels well, they're only just reaching where his level is. So they're going to need him to underperform. And I don't like betting against horses expecting him to underperform. I trust Gordon. I think the 11 to 10 is okay, but I'm hoping that we get a little bit bigger because he was tightened up in the market after Gordon confirmed the race. So if he gets out to sort of a 6 to 4 shot, he'd rate a proper bet, I reckon. I mean, at the minute, he's 11 to 10, isn't he? But if I'd have said you was a 6 to 4 shot, you might have said you want to back him as well.
Possibly,
right.
Yeah.
3:30, we've got the Melling Chase. It's a smaller field than anticipating. It's a smaller field than we maybe expect for this race, given the fact that it is a good grade 1 over 2.5 miles on a flatter track for people that want to avoid Cheltenham at the best of times as well. But we have just got the 4 runners, Will. The loss for the Melling Chase has been the benefit to the bowl, really. John Bond's in at 4 to 6 now. El Fabiolo's as big as 6 to 1, but as short as 11 to 4. So Market's got to make his mind up on that one. Protectorat's bottom price 9 to 2, top price 6 to 1, and Matata's 33 to 1. Now, Will, I remember when Protectorat slammed, I think it was Native River in the Many Clouds Chase, when they just went off with Protectorat and just ruined them. And I was looking at the bowl thinking, I'd make a case for Protectorat back at 3 miles because he's hardly getting faster with age. But they've persisted with him at this distance. Obviously, they've got Grey Dawning in there. I'm worried with Protectorat that if he gets pestered, he just doesn't run his races. He was very good on his start where he managed to get out in front, sort of on the comeback. And they rode him strangely in a couple of races. But if Matata wasn't in here, John Bon and El Fabiolo, I think, would be probably happy enough to get a toe, for all that Nico won't want to get caught at the start. But I can't see how Matata doesn't lay up with him and they wind each other up. So I just think the simple part of this is John Bon is the best horse in the race. John Bon jumping has been found out against the fastest 2 mile chasers jumping, but now he's going up to the extra half of hurdle again and he'll be jumping at a slightly slower pace. I just don't see how he gets beat bar a significant error, which I know he made before, but he's only really made those significant errors when they jump in real fast. So boring, but John Bon looks almost unbeatable for me at 4 to 6. But after getting my fingers burnt at Cheltenham, I wouldn't be betting in this race, I don't think. How do you see it? Is there an in the race?
I couldn't see one. No, I couldn't see one. Maybe it's not really my bag at all, but the John Bon distances might be an interesting angle to look at because I like you, I think he's, he should really win. Say should, because I think the race could easily set up really nicely for him with, as you say, Protectorat. I think they know that he needs to dominate like he did at Windsor to be seen at his best. Matata loves to dominate over 2 miles. I think to try and take him back and get him to see the trip out would be going against his strengths.
Yeah.
So I could see that JJ Slevin would try and go on with Matata, and if that, in the same way in doing so, helps his ownership mate El Fabiolo, get a toe into the race and also mix it with the likes of Protectorat and John Bon, then you could see that happening. So I could see a situation here where John Bon, travels really nicely on a strong tempo, jumps better on a flat track, and goes and wins by a good margin. Like I said, it's never really something that comes on my radar, the distance bets, because there's so many factors, so many invariables. But this one I could see, I don't know what prices you'd likely to get, but over 5, over 10 lengths, you could see that happening. I'm sort of half in the back of my mind thinking you sound really muggy putting this kind of suggestion up, but I genuinely think in my mind that's something that could play out. So if you can get a bigger price about that eventuality, then that might be the way to play it. But again, it's all price dependent, definitely.
Absolutely. But that's the big purpose of doing this stuff, Will. It's nice to talk horses with like-minded people. It's nice to speak horses for the viewers at home to hear like the way that we might look at a race or approach stuff. And like there, when we say it might be a little bit muggy, I think everyone as a punter might feel like that in some occasions. But at the end of the day, if you want to have an interest in a race, that's the way you want to do it. Like we say, it is price dependent, but it's all your own decision. If you want to do it, no such thing as a muggy bet. But we will move on to the Topham.
Trust me, I've had plenty of muggy bets.
We all have. Sometimes they're worth the loss for the education, aren't they? So it's all it's all got to be seen as a positive. Right, moving on to the Topham Handicap Chase. 2 mile 5 over the Grand National fences. Arizona Cardinal, who was cited at the beginning of the season that he'd be coming back for a defence in this, hasn't been declared, which I didn't really check to see if there was any vibes or anything, whether that would happen or not. But I was slightly surprised by. But you've got James de Burley, who was runner-up last year, who looked like the winner, has been declared. Then to make it even more strange, they've declared Blue Lord, and Paul Townend's riding him. So banner in the works with everything at the top of it. It's a race where I've found the second or third more times than I care to mention, but I rarely do find the winner. The ones that would be on my radar for like the profile of a horse that I might like in here, Bad sounds a crazy one to put in here, but from a trendy perspective, a lot of winners have finished top 2 last time out. A lot of horses are rated somewhere between 133 and 142. A lot of horses are carrying between 11 stone 10 and 11 stone 3, I think it is. A lot of horses are having their first look at Aintree, as much as it's specialist fences. Like the fact that it brings them to it can spark a little bit of extra improvement. And for all he's a bit of a rogue, the blinkers have definitely helped him out. He's on a bit of an upward curve. So I think he ticks enough boxes to suggest you could see over this discipline, sharpen him up, he could probably run quite well. One at a stupidly big price, I'd be 50s plus, it would be probably close to 100 on the exchanges, would be Gemaran, that won the December Gold Cup. I think the better ground will suit this horse. And another one, I think if the fences wake him up a bit, I think he'll be fine. He's £5 higher now, maybe, than when he won that December Gold Cup. But even his win at Ascot at the start of the season was a really good RPR. So I think he's better than he's shown in his last few runs. So yeah, I'd give him a squeak at a massive, massive price. And then the last one that I wanted to mention was for Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville, and that's Excello, who's been running in handicap hurdles this season. Well, a couple of times. He's run over hurdles. He ran a novice hurdle right at the start of the season. They're giving him one chase start last time out, but he was chasing for them last season. He's an ex-French recruit that's got lots of experience over fences over there as well. They've applied cheap pieces to him, so it feels a little bit like this actually may have been a very long-term plan for the Seven Bear Eyes camp, and he looks like an obvious shortener. There's only been one winner in first-time cheap piece in the Topham since 2000. That was, I think I've got it somewhere on here, but it was like a 22-1 winner, Eastlake, I think it was. There's only been 9 that have tried. So while that price does skew it, if you've only had 9 horses trying this century and one of them's won, it's probably a positive factor to say first-time cheap pieces. So he's won at 25s. I'd give a bit of a squeak to. But Will, the Topham, is it a race you get excited about because we get to see the Grand National fences?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a race that I think that I've often had some decent bets in it, actually, whether they've landed or not, but I felt they've been decent bets going into it. Excello is one definitely on my radar, as you said. It definitely looks like a real kind of plan that has come together for Nicky Henderson. He squeezes in as the last of 30 as well. So they've done well to hold firm with keeping that chase mark and running him over hurdles and not thinking that maybe we need to inch him up a couple of pounds or so because he's just squeezed in. Yeah, and Nico de Bonville getting down to 10 stone 2. I can't see another time when he's got down to that low for a good while. So that's often a bit of a tip in itself, isn't it? If the main jockey is keen on getting right down to their minimum weight and beyond, probably for him. Yeah. So he's on the radar, definitely. Lisnamalt Lad is on the radar. Horse who won around Cheltenham a few starts ago. He's not had things go his way since then, but I can see his style suiting Aintree, definitely. I have backed one anti-post in here as well, and I put it up on the column at 100-1, and that's Ascaria 10, who is still probably available, I don't know, 50s, 66s, something like that. With the extra places, he's well worth another small each way bet at as well. His run style will really suit. He's jumped round these fences before in the Grand National a couple of seasons ago. He was bang there going over the Melling Road for the final time. For me, I think this is his trip. He's often been tried over 3 miles plus when trained by Gordon Elliott. But I think Martin Keithley, as he can do with a lot of older horses, he's really sweetened him up. He's run him in some cross-country races where he's run really well. He ran at the festival 3 weeks ago where he actually he was slightly inconvenienced by Vanillier nearly taking the wrong course, and he got shuffled back as well. But he actually got his way back to the front on the final circuit there as well. So he's a real player, I think, Ascaria 10. First-time visor on. The Goffer, I think, is a player as well. Jumped around these fences before, performed with credit in the cross-country chase. I think this is more his trip. Yep. Probably named half the field there, I reckon. But they're all big enough prices, so you could back 3 or 4 of those each way with the extra places and be more than happy to do that.
Well, absolutely. And that's it. We've touched on the fact that there's 30 runners in here. So we've got a lot of firms still offering 4 places, which is criminal. Most will be offering 5, I'm sure. There's some that are offering 6. There is a place where you can get 7. But yeah, I'm a big advocate, especially in like a race like this where the prices are where they are. I'm a big advocate that you don't be scared of betting more than one horse. I used to be very, very against it in my younger days of betting. I used to get too stubborn, and you throw away winners, and it doesn't matter. You can take as many darts as you want, obviously within reason. One last thing to mention on the top, and when I was going through some trendy bits, if there's a horse that's priced sub 8-1 in here in terms of SP, anywhere between 13-2 and 8-1, really, properly take note of it, because it is a big field. So normally the favourites aren't that sort of price. I think there's been one winning favourite, which was a joint 7-1 favourite. But yeah, towards the head of the market, if something does get significantly supported, then it does seem to speak volumes in this race. As long as they stick between 6.5 and 8-1, like if you saw something get smashed up to 2-1, you probably want to take it on, but can't see that in a Topham. No. Right. A race where we probably won't see another 2-1 shot either, is the Grade 1 Sefton Novices Hurdle. It's over 3 miles and half a furlong, Will. Good looking race, this one, although you'd probably argue it's not Grade 1 standard on the official figures of what we've got in the field. Calafian Vol is vying for favouritism. top price 5-1, bottom price 4-1. Same price range for Mr. Megget, bottom price 4-1, top price 5-1. Jacob's Ladder is a shorts 4-1, as big as 11-2. Battleborn Lad has seen a bit of money. That's a shorts 5-1, big as 7-1. Familiar Dreams for Gordon Elliott, the mare, she's 10-1, and then it's sort of 10-1, 14-1, bar those. But lots of horses in here, Will, that, especially from a ratings perspective, wouldn't have to do too much more than they've already done to land this race. Although typically, especially when you've got horses in the past like Thistlecrack that won this, although he was like a 25-1 poke, wouldn't he? You've had some good horses that won this, Santini's Champs and things. Might not take as good a horse to win it this time round. How do you see this one? Because we liked Calafé and Vol earlier this season before we took on the new Lion. Do you think his form's actually just getting stronger and stronger, and possibly now, in hindsight, what he's done over a shorter chip's even better, because he probably is a 3 mile, did you say?
Yeah, I very much am in agreement with that. I'd have him clear favourite here, Calafé on Vol. I think, that new Lion form was good. It was strong at the time. He suggested to me at that stage that he'd be better with a real stamina test as well. And he won really well, I thought, in the Sydney Banks. He in spite of a number of things there, sharp track, trip just in below 2.5 miles, I thought he did really well to win. And he beat some good horses that I think, because of the way they've been placed since then, haven't shown their best, but I think they're good horses, and I'd be willing to forgive the likes of No Questions Asked and Jax Jr. and one or two others, because they both went to Cheltenham probably not in the right kind of situation to show their best, whereas Calafé on Vol has been kept fresh for this, steps up to 3 miles, flat track, ground will be lovely. I'd have him clear favourite. So he's probably, you can get, I think some firms are paying 4 places, aren't they? So 5-1 each way with those 4 places, that to me looks a really good bet. Yeah,
that's fair. And I did take him on in that Sydney Banks, because I did think it might be sort of sharp enough for him, and he did look beaten, to be fair. I was Jax Jr. I put up that day. I think that traded maybe 1-5 or something in running, but the way that this horse rallied back after was, A, in the manner of a horse that would appreciate a bigger step up in trip, but also B, that of just a very good horse, considering he had no business coming back into contention after looking like he was gone. So I think he should be clear favourite too. So he represents a bit of value, I suspect, even still, like 5-1, 4-1 at this time I was saying about it. I mentioned Familiar Dreams for Gordon Elliott. She has been very progressive this season. She couldn't jump at all when she ran behind Maureen. Gordon picked her up at the end of last season, I think. So he's only had like 1 summer with her, but her last 2 races, she's actually improved massively on her jumping. She showed a real good attitude last time to just rally through to the line. That was a mare's grade 3, so a weak enough standard when you compare it to a grade 1, but this isn't a typical grade 1, and she gets the £7 as well. I can definitely see her in contention. And then Western Knight, for all that he is a big horse that looks everything that's a chaser for next season, we've had a few of those types that have come and won this race, haven't we? Like when Ahoy Signor beat Brave Man's Game, even going back to a Thistlecrack. I know he went and won World Hurdles, but Western Knight, the yard have kept him off since the Rivet Don disappointment, and he was too bad to be true that day. So the fact that they have left him up makes me think that there must have been some sort of setback. So he's sort of on my radar at 20s as well, because I think he's just probably too big a price to maybe let go unbacked. But
I think if you like Western Knight, you've got to also like Julius de Picton on their meeting at Uttoxeter from back in the earlier stages of the season. Because I think even though they've gone back to 2 miles with Julius de Picton, for me, he looks like a stayer. I think they've tried to find winnable listed races over shorter. I agree with you. I think Western Knight is a progressive stayer potentially. And I think Julius de Picton is also that, for a trainer who knows what he's doing at this meeting, Jamie Snowden as well. Yeah.
So it's 100% one of those races, and it looks nice and competitive on paper. I do think Calafé and Volt is the one that they've all got to beat, but 4 places up for grabs, even 5 with 1 firm. Some each way plays could be the order of play. They could be in contention for that anyway. Right. The last race we've got, Will, it's the Conditional and Amateur Jockeys Handicap Hurdle. I like this race. So it's another one where I've been bitten in it a few times. I found like a few value losers in it, but I do like this contest. I like the fact that it is a clear target for some horses too. I know with a lot of these types of races, they can just be not necessarily running for the sake of running them, but I think to have like the big stage, you get like a Martin Pike where they can do the same thing over 2 miles with some of these good horses in it, where the jockeys have built up a good rapport through the season. I think it's nice they've got this big target event. With all that said, I really do think that Affadil, £6 lower than when he was third in this last year. He always improves with his racing. He was unlucky. Was it Musselburgh a couple of starts ago when I fancied him there? Ground's drying up for him nicely. Like, he definitely has a favourites chance. You can still get 6-1 about him again. Correct at the time of recording for each way 5 places. So I will be playing him, but I'll also be playing Celtic Dino as well, because he gets on so well with Dylan Johnston, which is going to be a massive advantage in this type of race. That's not to belittle any of the other jockeys, but they've already got winning form. Earlier this season, when he beat Wade Out, he runs in the 2.5 mile handicap earlier, he beat him comfortably, staying on nicely through to the line as well. And I just think they tested him in better company behind a Potter's Charm, even last time behind Tripoli Flyer. And although he's been well beaten by those horses, he's been beaten by horses that are clearly a stone better than him. So off his mark of 132 in easier company, Connections have put lump sum in as well, interestingly, kept him in at the top weight, which it's £10 difference between him and the second in the weight, which obviously means that's £10 less for Celtic Dino to carry in here. It's not always the case that makes it the benefit, but you can get 9-2 for him generally. There is 11-1 showing here, but that might be an old market. But I think I'd happily play the pair rather than taking the each way terms, just have a win dart on each of them, Will. But it's a big field, right? There's 22 of them in it. There's some big old prices. There's got to be some juice away from the top of the market, has there?
Yeah, I think there will be. I can see the case definitely for Affadil and Celtic Dino as well. I think Celtic Dino is a really nice horse. I backed him in the Dovecote Novices Hurdle last time out, but the ground went against him when one of these occasions this season where they seem to have watered more than it perhaps has been advertised. But anyhow, Al Nilam is the one that I'll definitely be backing from an each way perspective with those extra places. Probably not the first string for Ollie Murphy on jockey bookings. Lewis Saunders is on Diamonds for Luck, but Beau Morgan is probably as experienced a conditional jockey in here as there is, really. So don't think by any stretch that that's a negative on jockey bookings. And he ran a massive race in the Moor Battle Hurdle last time out. He's been a horse who, when he's right, he's very, very good. And Ollie Murphy seems to have just worked him out a little bit. He's put in some consistent runs for him, which is, he's not the first horse that Ollie Murphy has figured out this season. He's had a cracking season all told. And I think Al Nilam, the way he went through that Moor Battle Hurdle, very well run affair. He was always in the van, always pushing things. Possibly if Sean Quinlan could have his time again, he might not have hit the front quite so soon, but he actually was only run down late on by Cracking Rhapsody, who you can set your watch by at Kelso. Of course, 2-time winner of the Moor Battle Hurdle. So I think that piece of form in its isolation is really, really worthy. And I think you can get sort of 14-1 plus about Al Nilam. I think he's a good each way bet at those prices.
I like that. And he's had the wind up, hasn't he, for a couple of starts ago. But I remember when he ran second to Oaken Risk, because I put up Mirabad at Cheltenham. This isn't me just trying to do it for half the time, but I put up Mirabad and I was speaking to a few people about it to get their views, as it's good to do. None of them could have him. They were saying, you can't be betting a horse like that if it's got beat by Oaken Risk and Al Nilam. So I think he's a horse that's been poo-pooed a bit. But the form of that has worked out nicely. And of course, he did have Affadil behind him in that race too. So, yeah, definitely see the case for that one. Right, I didn't say at the start of it, but there will be a link in the description for the Whichbookie website where you can find all of mine and Will's final selections for each of the days of the Aintree Festival. We'll be back again tomorrow to record the Grand National fixture. So we've got all the races covered for Saturday at Aintree. Thank you so much for your guys' support. Make sure you're dropping a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you can. And Will, I'll leave you just now. Is there any final parting words of wisdom to our viewers?
Promise I won't be in a car park tomorrow. There you go. There's my words of wisdom. Have a good one, though. Enjoy. By the time, actually, no, we'll speak to you again before tomorrow's racing. But yeah, really looking forward to it. Good 3 days.
Awesome. Right. Thanks again, Will, and I'll catch you tomorrow, mate.
Cheers.